This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 235-inch.
On this episode, we interview comedy musician Weird Al Yankovic Story featured extra and former Mad Magazine editor Allie Goertz.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Hello, Ethan and wonderful listeners, and welcome to episode 235-inch.
Since you've been gone, we missed a few very special things, so let's take care of that right away!
From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we hope you had a murderous weasel stomping day on June 31st.
We hope you had a splendid Canada Day on June 1st, eh?
And we hope Al's wife, Suzanne Yankovic, had a very happy birthday on July 2nd.
And from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we wish you a very happy American Independence Day tomorrow, July 4th.
And now it's time for What's Happening in Weird Al Related News.
While much of the world was busy watching the U.S. presidential debate between Donald Trump and President Joe Biden, past guests of the podcast, the Gregory brothers, were busy doing what they do best.
That is correct. The Gregory brothers once again teamed with Weird Al to release Deja Vu, but worse, their third collaboration featuring Al.
The 6.5-minute long video premiered on their YouTube page on June 28th, less than 24 hours after the historic presidential debate.
If you haven't seen the video yet, check it out over on their YouTube page at Schmoyoho. That's SCHMOYOHO.
And after you watch the video 27 or so times, head on over to Weird Al's TikTok or Instagram accounts to see some additional unused questions and footage of Weird Al that was recorded but didn't make the final cut.
GuitarWorld.com recently shared a pretty stinking majestic interview with Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West.
Now, while the whole interview is quite wonderful, one particular statement by Kimo caught our collective and many other Weird Al fans' attention.
In the interview, Kimo stated, quote, "Next year we're going out with an expanded band, extra players and singers.
Yay! Let the speculation begin!
While we have many hopes and thoughts and dreams, we really hope extra singers means Lisa, Monique, and Scotty, aka the Al's Gals, will be back out on the tour."
And as featured background actors, also known as extras in Weird Al Yankovic Story, we really hope that qualifies us for something in the tour too.
Yesterday, July 2nd, marked the official release of the UHF 35th Anniversary Edition 2-disc 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray set.
On their website, Shout Factory mentioned that while they've started shipping the 4K discs out, if you've ordered one of the packages through their website, the additional items will ship in early August.
Incredibly, Ethan and I each received one of our copies and the exclusive posters all the way back on June 20th. Neat.
Also yesterday, July 2nd, the Walmart exclusivity for the Weird Al Yankovic Story Steelbook has expired, so expect to see steelbooks of Weird Al Yankovic Story everywhere fine steelbooks are sold.
And speaking of steel, attention Pittsburgh area Weird Al fans. Weird Al will be making an appearance at Steel City Con next month.
Weird Al will be appearing for autographs and photos on Friday, August 9th, Saturday, August 10th, and Sunday, August 11th.
For pricing, scheduling, and more information, head over to steelcitycon.com.
Attention, Tulsa area Weird Al fans! Circle Cinema, Tulsa's nonprofit movie house, is showing UHF as part of their Okie Film Night.
The special screening is one night only on Tuesday, July 9th, and tickets are only $5.
To purchase tickets and for more information, head on over to circlecinema.org.
To cash in on, to help celebrate the upcoming 35th anniversary of UHF, the apparel website Freight Rags added some new officially licensed UHF merchandise and brought back some of their UHF t-shirt designs from 2019.
In addition to 5 previously released UHF-themed shirts from 2019 that are now print on demand, new to their website is a UHF vinyl sticker set and a UHF button set.
Please note that while all the previously mentioned merchandise is licensed through Orion/MGM, it is not licensed or necessarily approved by Weird Al. Hence why Weird Al's name and likeness do not appear on any of the merchandise.
However, if you search Weird Al on the Fright Rags website, all of the UHF products show up. Curious.
This episode is brought to you in part by vegan burrito restaurant Burrito Burrito, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito Burrito and Burrito Burrito, your Burrito Burrito, and Wizard Burger for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Albany to Uranus, Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
And now it's time for What's Happening in Everything Celebrities Do is Fascinating Related News! According to Jeff Nucera's mom, a photo of Travis Kelce and Weird Al showed up in the June 17th edition of People magazine. Fascinating!
Also, according to Joe Jaffa's mom's friend, Weird Al was spotted on a plane to New York on July 1st. Fascinating!
And finally, and I'm sure someone's mom's friend's friend saw this too, Weird Al posted a photo with Ayo Adibri mentioning the Season 3 premiere of The Bear, raising speculation. Will Weird Al have a cameo in The Bear Season 3? Fascinating!
And now it's time for what's happening in Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West related news.
The first single from Jim Kimo West's new album with Josh Jaffe, San Fi, has officially dropped, and it's pretty stinkin' beautiful.
The song Butterfly is now available to stream and download wherever fine music is sold and or streamed.
And now it's time for What's Happening in Past Guest of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast related news.
Our stupid intern Frank forgot to tell us for like the past 6 months that past guest of the podcast and official Al Gal, Scotty Mitchell, aka Scotty Haskell, finally released the album she was telling us about during our interview with her.
Please do yourself a favor and download Scotty's album, Stories to Tell, on Apple Music and wherever fine music is sold and or streamed.
Our friends over at The Fump are gearing up for their festival this fall, which includes the comedy music-based Logan Awards.
Nominations are open right now, so to nominate your favorites and for more information, head over to LoganAwards.com.
The band Bobby Joe Ebola and the Children Mac Nuggets has a Kickstarter for their new album ending soon. And why are we bringing this up, Ethan?
Well, not only do they play demented music that fans of Weird Al will enjoy, and not only are they featured in the short film That Sucks, which also features a cameo by Weird Al and those guys who played the tough bikers in Weird the Al Yankovic Story, 2 past guests of the podcast can be heard on their new album.
That's right, both Zeb Lemke and Craig Billmeyer, aka Hot Licks Houlihan, are players on Solar Cantata, the Kickstarter album project by Bobby Joe Ebola and the Children Mac Nuggets.
You can check them out and support their project over at BobbyJoeEbola.com.
And now it's time to check out what's happening in Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast related news.
Recently, Amazon Music featured Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast in their promotional The Comedy Carousel section of their podcast homepage.
Thank you, Amazon and Amazon Music. Maybe Jeff Bezos isn't quite so bald after all.
Jeff recently found a photo of our very own Dave Elvis Rossi posted on the subreddit Old School Cool with the caption, Weird Al Yankovic signs a fan's leg in Sam Goody, November 30th, 1996.
The post is from 2 years ago and features a photo of Weird Al signing my leg in what would immediately follow as my first Weird Al tattoo.
I don't know if you saw this, Dave, but one user, Zelly8, commented on the post, "That fan is handsome." I wonder if they listen to the podcast.
Well said. This past weekend, our very own Ethan Ullman took his dad and brother to the Mad Magazine exhibit at the Norman Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
The Mad Magazine exhibit was pretty stinking majestic, Dave. Not only was it filled with incredible original Mad Magazine art and artifacts, there were a number of Weird Al references I wanted to share on the podcast. So first up, Weird Al's name was listed on a plaque of all of the Mad Magazine staff. There was a photo of him in one of the videos playing, and then on another TV, another video montage of works inspired by Mad Magazine showed both a clip of the Eat It video and the Fat music video in its entirety.
That sounds fabulous, but that's not all. Weird Al was also mentioned in a blurb about an original piece of art for one of the famous Mad Magazine song parodies, mentioning that Weird Al has said those were an early inspiration for him.
Plus, the gift shop also featured Al. They were selling prints of the Weird Al's artwork by Mark Fredrickson from the cover of the famous Weird Al issue of Mad Magazine.
Well, it sounds like you had a wonderful time. Pretty stinking majestic.
But that's not the only Weird Al related happening since our last episode, was it, Dave?
Oh no, it certainly wasn't. Both you and I were in attendance at the UHF movie party at the Alamo Draft House in Yonkers, New York on Monday, June 24th.
It was a ton of fun, but Dave, it wasn't just you and I there. Of course, my girlfriend Kate was there, your wife Jackie Rossi was there, and we were joined by our friends Adrian and Ann, Claire and Francesco, Ron, and Weird the Al Yankovic Story's Josh Pilch.
It was such a fun day. Before the screening, a bunch of us got together and we went out for dinner at Pizza and Brews.
We did receive a couple gifts, Dave, so I wanted to mention we received a pretty stinking majestic comic written and drawn by our friend Ron, and we also received some original artwork of Daniel as Weird Al, as well as a little drawing of you and I, Dave, by Josh Pilch. So that was really cool, and we had a great dinner and lots of fun hanging out before the movie.
And Claire had this absolutely amazing Dave and Ethan's 2008 Weird Al podcast themed sweatshirt that she made. It had podcast and Weird Al related artwork on it, plus even signatures from past guests, Josh Pilch and Zach Sherwin, as well as the current co-host of Dave and Ethan's 2008 Weird Al podcast, our very own Ethan Ullman. I was honored that she asked me to sign the sweatshirt too. And of course, special guest Jackie Rossi added her signature as well. Alrighty, so once we got to the Alamo Draft House, we came in and UHF was sold out, by the way. I think it sold out like immediately as soon as tickets went on sale.
Totally.
Once tickets went on sale, we bought an entire row, the entire fourth row, and we figured we could find people to sit with us, and we had no problem finding people to sit with us.
While the event tickets went fast, so did the tickets we bought. We easily found a bunch of friends to go with us. What was really weird, though, is for a sold-out event, the rest of the Alamo, even though they were showing other films and movies, it seemed pretty empty. It was just people wearing Weird Al shirts from what I could see.
Now, there were some really amazing giveaways as part of this UHF party. There were these like custom-made TV signal glasses, red glasses with that TV signal logo covering up the eyes where the glasses usually would be. If you put them on, it was a little hard to look at it, but there are little tiny dots that you can see through.
Yes, and on the side of the glasses it said UHF Movie Party, and that was the only custom thing we received. The other two props they gave us were individually wrapped gummy hot dogs.
Yep.
Mini gummy hot dogs, I'll say.
I think those were to represent Twinkie Wiener sandwiches.
Right. Then they also gave us, which was kind of odd, mustaches to be like Weird Al's mustache, but it looked nothing like Weird Al's mustache. It looked kind of like Wilford Brimley's mustache, like a really long, wide mustache. Really nothing like Weird Al's. Now, part of the party, of course, we got these props. They also had some really cool pre-show entertainment. They had clips of Weird Al performing. They had old music videos. It was pretty cool.
Now, the host of the event was this wonderful woman named Ellie, and she was a huge Weird Al fan, but her son was there too, and he was even a bigger Weird Al fan than she was. Some of the pre-show entertainment included trivia questions.
My favorite trivia question she asked was simply, why was Dr. Demento important? And asking that to people like us and our friends and the other super fans who were there is kind of a very open-ended, very long question for an easy trivia quiz. So I think someone in our group spoke up and said, can you be more specific?
I was thinking, how much time do you have?
Ultimately, what she was looking for was Dr. Demento was the first person to play Weird Al's music on the radio. But she definitely could have asked that a little bit better, I think.
You know what else was fun? There was actually a Twinkie Wiener eating contest with real Twinkie Wiener sandwiches.
Yeah, so I was expecting who could eat the most number, but what it turned out to be was who could put an entire Twinkie Wiener sandwich in their mouth the fastest was ultimately what they were judged on.
Now, Ellie asked for some volunteers from the audience, and our very own Ron got selected for the Twinkie Wiener eating contest.
And I think that he actually got it in and swallowed it the fastest, but another contestant was faster at actually sticking the entire thing in her mouth. So I think he was kind of robbed, but to be fair, the prize was 2 tickets to the Yonkers Alamo Draft House, and Ron had to drive like 5 hours to get there, so probably good it went to her anyway.
Now, the movie itself is a lot of fun. We don't need to get into that because I know everyone listening has already seen it. But to watch that movie with a whole bunch of fans and everybody yelling at the screen, quoting lines and participating when you're supposed to is so much fun.
Oh, it's the best. Nothing beats that experience, seeing Weird Al movies live with other fellow Weird Al fans. So that was really cool.
I agree. It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad that all of us went and we had so much fun.
It was pretty stinking majestic to finally meet in person Weird, the Al Yankovic Story animation producer Josh Pilch.
It absolutely was. And this was also the first time I got to meet Claire and Francesco as well.
I hope they do another screening, maybe a little bit closer next time, because it did take me 2.5 hours to get there, but it was quite a fun experience.
And after the event, like we usually do, we hung around in the parking lot and had all kinds of fun.
We even saw a store called Steve's Shoes, which reminded us of Steve J's original song, Big Shoes, from his album Sea Never Dry. So, of course, we had to have a photo shoot.
And all 6 guys in our group took a fun picture in front of 5 guys. Now, who was the odd one left out?
Whoa! That sound means we've got a call on the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Okay, intern Frank, let's hear that spatula call.
Hi, this is Claire.
And this is Weird, the Al Yankovic Story animation producer by way of Augenblick Studios, Josh Pilch.
This is Francesco.
Anyway, we were all just together at the Alamo Draft House in Yonkers, New York to see a great movie party screening of UHF. We had great conversations, but we realized we forgot to tell you something really important, and here it is.
Gee, thanks Claire, Josh, and Francesco. I don't know that we could have lived without hearing that very important thing you had to tell us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that with us. It really added a lot to our review. All right, enough of that, Ethan. Let's check out this episode's interview. Take it away.
Dave and I are absolutely thrilled to welcome to the podcast our co-star from Weird the Al Yankovic Story and acclaimed musician who's coming out with a brand new album as a tribute to the 9 Inch Nails. Please welcome to the podcast, Allie Goertz. How's it going, Allie?
Hi, it's good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always nice to get to talk to another one of our co-stars
Yeah.
from the film.
Why weren't we at a big rap party hanging out with Daniel Radcliffe? Or did you guys get to do that? I didn't.
Yeah, we did not get to go to any kind of rap party, so yeah, I'm offended.
Me too. We're the reason that movie won an Emmy. I'll just say that outright.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I will say briefly, and I don't know how much we were going to, I mean, I imagine we're going to be talking about Weird Al quite a bit, but when I watched the movie for the first time, I play a very glorified extra, which I'm thrilled to have gotten to play. And I am sat in an audience shot right behind actual Al Yankovic. And, I'm watching this and I'm saying to my friend Jonah Ray, I was like, they keep cutting to me a lot. This is amazing. And he's like, they're cutting to Weird Al. I was like, that makes more sense.
I mean, I don't know if you could have gotten a more premium spot, because of course they want to show Al and his wonderful wife Suzanne, throughout.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to cut around me when I'm right up behind him.
When we interviewed Eric Appel, he shared with us that you reached out to be in Weird the Al Yankovic Story. Can you tell us how that happened?
Yeah, I feel like Eric was telling me and aforementioned Jonah Ray, and maybe a couple of other buddies about the Al movie, maybe a couple of years, at least a year before it was in production. And I was just so excited about it, and I'd really liked the short. But I was like, oh, that's so cool that I know the person who's going to be making that. And I don't remember exactly what the DM says. I could probably pull it up. But I just slid into the DMs and was just like, I will get coffee for you guys. I'll just clean up around set. Whatever just gets me to be on set for a day, please let me do it. And he's like, honestly, no one else has really asked me to do it. Yes, you could do it. Absolutely. I'm like, oh, amazing. And that is something I do think is important, where it's like, you can't have a big ego when it comes to the things you genuinely love, because if I did, I wouldn't have gotten to be in all those shots with Al. And maybe a proper actor would be they'd think lowly of that, but I think it's the coolest thing in the world. So I'm so stoked that Eric let me do it.
Oh, and that's very similar to our origin story of getting into the film. So we totally relate and we can understand. And from our perspective, it was maybe the greatest day and experience of our lives. How did it hold up for you? Oh,
it was incredible. The experience of being on set and having my hair and makeup done in this very fun 80s way. I'm almost unrecognizable. Wow. I look a little bit like Olivia Newton-John at the end of Grease. But I don't have the benefit of looking like Olivia Newton-John. And but still very cool, very fun. I remember asking my then employer for time off, being like, it's really important. And I could have lied and said, I'm sick or I have a family thing. But I was like, I need to miss work so I could be in the Weird Al movie. He's like, got it. Loud and clear. Go ahead. And what monster would say no to that, right?
Right.
But going onto the set, it was really crazy because I'm lucky enough that I've met so many cool people and people that I'm a huge fan of, and I tend to not really get starstruck. And there have only been a couple of times in my life where I have gotten starstruck to the point where I'm like, I actually have to drop the cool facade of, oh, hey, we're just all people working in Hollywood, and I need to go up to this person and tell them that I'm a fan. I just have this compulsion, and Weird Al was one of them, and I'll get into that another time.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Daniel Radcliffe dressed as Weird Al. Not only do I love Daniel Radcliffe because I'm the perfect age to have really loved the Harry Potter movies as much as we all hate J.K. Rowling. Those movies are so fun, and I loved Harry Potter. But to have Harry Potter, who's one of my childhood icons, being dressed as my other childhood icon, that's just that is such a trip. And he was so nice. Daniel Radcliffe was so nice. He has that same type of Weird Al thing of there's just so much generosity and just good involved feelings. They make you feel like you matter. They're so, you know what I mean? It's just so nice. And that is something that is really scary when you do choose to meet somebody that you're a fan of, because if they're a dick, it's going to ruin your day, if not, a big chunk of your life.
Right.
What a treat. And, Eric, he's the nicest guy in the world. he was very clear about like, oh, we could put you as background for this scene, but I think it's going to be harder to edit you out if we put you behind Al. So we're going to put you behind Al. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure.
That's incredible. And I will say, I immediately recognized you as I was watching the movie for the first time. So even though your hair was weird,
amazing.
I think it's still very obviously you, which is very exciting. Did you tell people you were going to be in it, or did you let it be a surprise?
Oh no, I told everyone.
Yeah.
I told everyone immediately. I told my extra co-stars that were next to me, as if they didn't know that they were also going to be in a Weird Al movie. It's like, we're going to be in a Weird Al movie. It's like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah, but you get it.
I would love to hear about your experience actually filming the scene. What kind of things did you get to see? I assume the speech and getting assassinated. You were there for all that?
We didn't. I don't know if we saw him actually getting assassinated. We definitely saw him like pissing himself, which was very fun. Yeah, where was I? There were a few little. I was there the whole day, and so I got to see them do quite a bit actually. They were doing Amish Paradise, which was very fun to watch, and I think I was maybe background for that too, and then they realized like, oh, that's gonna get confusing, we can't have you in like the background of all of these scenes. But that's just how good I am at being in the background.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it was just so much fun. I remember though, not everyone in the background world of movies cares about the movie that they're in, because this is their job and they are showing up and clocking into work. They don't really know what the project is. They are just hired extras. And it was very weird to be sitting next to people that don't really know who Weird Al is, and they don't even know like the songs that he's parodying because they were born after the parodies came out. You know what I mean? It's just so like, what? Where are we? This is so bizarre. And as you know, the Weird Al movie is a lot of satirical facts, so lies, and a lot of the people are like, I didn't know he did that stuff. I'm like, he didn't. It's a joke.
Love it.
How about you guys? I'm sure you guys have already talked about it on your own podcast, but how was it for you guys?
Oh, it was, the biggest dream that I never thought would be realized come true. It was so incredible. And we had a very similar experience. We were just soaking up every last second, every detail. And the other background actors were just like, checking their nails. They just really didn't care,
Yeah. Yeah, it almost sounds like we had the exact same experience. We did get to briefly interact with Daniel Radcliffe, which was amazing. I, too, grew up with Harry Potter. I loved him. So absolutely, that was fun. And we did talk to Eric, and you're right. Everything you said about Eric, he's the nicest guy ever. And, he did go out of his way, same with you, to make sure we were prominently displayed in the scene that we were in. So it was...
That's so cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah, well, because I've talked a little bit to Eric just as a buddy, and one of my favorite things about him is a trait that I love in every good person who works in the industry that I've ever met, which is that they want to geek out with you, and
right.
They don't care that they're the one who made the thing. They're excited about it, and that passion like really transcends everything. Like, there's no trying to be too cool. It's like Eric and the guys who, like, so many of the writers on The Simpsons and Weird Al and like all these people are just like, yeah, let's talk about the thing that I do. That's why I do it, and it shows. And it to me is very much what can make their art stand out as being so good, because it's so earnest and authentic, and it's coming from a very real place.
And that's what you want as a consumer or a fan, is that kind of heart put into something that you love, and that kind of care put into it. So yeah, it's always really great for us to talk to people who've worked with Al, through our podcast, that they, share that same passion that we do a lot of the time. And it sounds like on Weird, especially, all of the cast and crew just absolutely love and respect the hell out of Al, and really went out of their way to make a great movie, and it shows.
Absolutely.
I feel like we need to ask you now when your first exposure to Weird Al was.
I mean, it's kind of like asking, like, when's your first exposure to, like, food or water. Like, I don't fully remember. I just know that it must have happened at some point.
Yeah.
But both of my parents love Weird Al, and my dad especially, I would say. And he would have been a fan long before I was born, and so it would have just been around. But I will say I have very vivid memories of I had this Dr. Demento CD that I listened to nonstop, and I forget which. It was a compilation of a lot of different things, of course, and it had like the homecoming queen's got a gun, and they're coming to take me away, haha, and something about fish. Like, it was a bunch of pickup lines about fish, and it had fish heads. Oh, one of my favorite songs in the world. Holy fish heads. My favorite line of that is that he snuck a fish head into the movies and that he didn't have to pay to get him in. That's the funniest thing in the world to me. Anyway, there was a number of Weird Al songs on that, and I thought it was great, and just have always loved him. And I really was especially into that stuff in middle school. And I actually have this vivid memory that flashed before my eyes when I saw Daniel Radcliffe dressed as Weird Al, which was that at my 11th birthday party, I had a very elaborate Harry Potter themed birthday, and like everyone was wearing cloaks. I don't even think they sold like Harry Potter wands yet, so I think we had whittled them out of drumsticks. And my aunt at the time had a history of dating literal clowns, and so a lot of them knew magic, and they were like performing stuff. And I know that my mom was like roasting chickens all day, and it was just like really elaborate and perfect. And it's the type of party where it looks like Hogwarts as opposed to like it's plates that have Harry Potter's picture on it.
Right.
But anyway, at that party, after all of the orchestrated themed activities were done, there's just like downtime and you're hanging out. And I remember I made all of my friends sing Fish Heads with me, and then we started singing like Another One Rides the Bus, and we just started singing all these different like Dr. Demento, Weird Al adjacent, if not Weird Al songs. And I was like, I think I manifested this movie. So, Eric, you're welcome.
And just back to that story, did your friends know these songs, or were you
No.
opening their eyes? You were opening their eyes.
Yeah, that was always, that still is one of my favorite things to do. I always love so much if I'm lucky enough to be the person to introduce my friends to the thing that I love. Maybe there were some times where I would have thought like, you haven't seen this, you're stupid, but like for the most part I'm like, you haven't seen this? That's so exciting, please let me be there.
Right,
like
right.
That's thrilling. But if they don't like it, go to hell.
Right.
But I was definitely showing them things like Spinal Tap and Chris Guest movies and like Wayne's World and just that type of stuff, mostly because that's just what I was raised on and it's all I knew. Like, I didn't watch or listen to very much contemporary content in the 90s because my dad was a bit of a pop culture snob, and my sisters and my dad are both Gen X. We have different biological fathers. That's how that works. And so, I just didn't really have a traditionally 90s experience when it came to pop culture, so I was always trying to bring my friends into 80s and before.
That's so awesome.
Well, I actually am Gen X, and I do remember Nine Inch Nails. They were huge when I was in college. The Downward Spiral, 1994. That one I remember being played in my dorm all the time. So how did you get introduced to Nine Inch Nails, and why are you doing a cover of their songs now?
So I actually am a crazy latecomer to Nine Inch Nails. Despite, having a very cool upbringing musically, my dad, I don't know if he didn't like Nine Inch Nails or if it was just that the content was simply too mature. Because I do remember him saying, because I was obsessed with Tenacious D, and I still have access to my first email address, which is tenaciousdfanforever@yahoo.com.
Amazing.
And, well, what's funny is that I did a Weird Allie rendition of Wonder Boy, not knowing that you shouldn't be parodying already funny songs, but my Weird Al version was called Wonder Bread. It was about like high above the countertops. Anyway, whatever. So Nine Inch Nails was something that I just kind of missed out on altogether, and like to the point that I did not know that Trent Reznor, who composes so many of my favorite film scores, had anything to do with Nine Inch Nails. Like, I did not compute that was the guy, which is not so crazy if you know the guy as being like, oh, he did the music for Soul. Like, you wouldn't necessarily know, like, that guy wants to be like an animal. Like, it's a little shocking.
Right.
And so I got into it while I was going through, like, a really bad breakup, and my cat was dying, and my car was getting broken into, and I had to make, I was just losing money left and right, or like fraud was happening. Like everything was going bad, and it was the summer, and I hate the summer. I get like seasonal depression in the wrong time of year. Like I love the cold, I hate the sun, and I was just miserable. And and my car stopped working, so I had to walk everywhere. I don't know if you know this, but people don't tend to walk in LA, so it was just not a good time. So I'm walking around the city in the boiling heat, and the night prior, I had been given a ride home, and the person driving me casually was like, I'm gonna put on Nine Inch Nails because I love Nine Inch Nails and I have the aux cord and that's what's happening. I'm like, all right. And so I asked the next day, I was like, which album was that? He's like, well, that was the Downward Spiral, but you should go back and listen to Pretty Hate Machine and go in order. And I'm all about completionist tasks like that. And so I put it on, and I'm walking around the city just so angry and like reaching a literal boiling point. And I just put on Pretty Hate Machine, and as soon as it had like a hole starts, I'm like, this is the most cathartic, incredible, important thing I've ever heard in my life. And it was instantly like, holy shit, I love Nine Inch Nails. And by the time I got to Downward Spiral, I'm like, this is everything. And it's so funny because that is so not my normal style of music. Like, I am very much like an Apple scruff, like Beatles, Beach Boys, Fiona Apple, Amy Mann, like power pop. I'm named after the Elvis Costello song, Allison, though I joke that I'm named after the Elvis Costello song, accidents will happen. But I never really listened to anything so angry before, and it was really just so therapeutic and powerful and special. And those lyrics and everything about the arrangements just did a lot for me. And I kind of was like, man, how am I going to get people that I love who have the same taste in music that I do for the most part? How am I going to get them into Nine Inch Nails? Like, I don't know if it's possible. They would also have to go through a breakup and have a beloved pet die and have all these horrible things happen that they'll be open to this kind of salve, you know what I mean? And I don't want that to happen. So what if instead I could peel back these songs and kind of get to their core of what I like so much about them. And I do love all the heaviness and the grit and the layers so much. And yet there is something so beautiful about Nine Inch Nails songs and their melodies, and kind of reinterpreting the lyrics just by virtue of a woman singing them. And I just really wanted my mom and my friends to like hear these songs and think, this is beautiful. And maybe they don't actually become a real Nine Inch Nails fan, but I'm going to make them like these Nine Inch Nails songs.
You did an incredible job, because the album is absolutely beautiful.
Thanks.
And I guess maybe I fall into the category of the people that are your friends who don't necessarily listen to Nine Inch Nails. And so I listened to the album, and I'm going through, and I ended up recognizing the lyrics to a lot more songs than I thought I would, which was surprising to me. But it's really interesting, and the juxtaposition of these really, I don't know how to describe it, heavy or strong lyrics with your beautiful voice and the melodies, and it's really an incredible experience to get to listen to this album.
Thank you. That makes me so happy. I really had so much fun kind of figuring out, like, what is this album going to be? Because as we've addressed, I love a lot of comedy music, and I myself have done comedy music in the past. My first album was called Cosby Sweater. It's like these nerdy love songs about like Milhouse, Van Houten, and Dungeons and Dragons, and the Steve Martin movie The Jerk. Now, those songs aren't meant to be like, knee slappers. They are very real and earnest and kind of sad, to be honest. So I've always had a little bit of that desire to blend genres of like, I'm taking a funny topic and then I'm going to make it something that maybe you cry at. Like if I'm doing my job well, you will be crying at the word tromboner. And like I've always just liked that blending of worlds, and I feel like Nine Inch Nails does that so well too, just with them originally. I think that Trent Reznor like has a very good sense of humor that maybe in 1994 you're not picking up on as much because it's just a different climate. But some of the lines in his songs are just so eviscerating and sharp and clever and witty that when you peel back these other layers, you could really hear that. And even though I knew I would be kind of stripping the songs down, I still had a few different ways I could do it. But one of the ways that I knew I didn't want to do it was to play it for laughs, because I really like Richard Cheese, that guy who does like, lounge act versions of songs. I love that. I really like when people have these kind of, wouldn't it be so funny if we took this band and did it like another band? Like, I really am so impressed when that's done well, but that's just not what I was going for. I didn't want there to be any gimmick. I didn't want there to be any winking. I wanted it to be played very, very straight, knowing that I can't help that people will still find it in some ways humorous or compelling or kind of funny to hear these intense lyrics coming from me. Like that's going to be built in, so there's no reason for me to add to that. It's just going to find itself.
Yeah, I will second what Ethan says about how beautiful this album sounds. The string arrangements and everything in all these songs, they're really wonderful. And I think you did a really nice spin on, the Trent Reznor songs, the Nine Inch Nail catalog. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned comedy music. Do you consider yourself a comedy musician?
That's a good question. And I think with the latest release of Peeled Back, I feel more comfortable in saying what I would have always said, which is no, I don't. However, I've been saying no, I don't, even when I was singing about, all these pop culture things. I think that what it is that, I find humor in almost everything, including things that I probably shouldn't, and that I'm, I don't want to sound big-headed or whatever, but and I'm not trying to, but like I'm clever. Like, I think my songs are clever and cheeky, or things that are kind of close. They fall under the comedy umbrella, but they're not necessarily meant to be like punchlines. Like, I'm not doing what like Garfunkel and Oates did, or it kind of lends itself more to Flight of the Conchords, who, you could absolutely say that's a comedy band. Same with Tenacious D. But what's so important to me about good, quote-unquote, comedy music is that it's music first and comedy second. Yeah. And, I hate music comedy when it's done badly, because you're ruining two great things. You're ruining comedy and music. If you stick to one lane, you at least are safe. And it really is hard to be funny and melodic and to have a good voice and to do all the little things. So when someone does it well, it's just so above and beyond amazing and so impressive, which is why, like, Flight of the Conchords, Tenacious D, Weird Al and his original songs, Garfunkel and Oates, it's just like so good. And we see that a lot with Bo Burnham in his special during the pandemic as well, where it's like he has songs that are pretty funny, but he also has songs that are like so sad and like that's kind of harder to categorize, and maybe it's wrong of me to think of comedy musician as being a little like not demeaning, but like something like that, right? I just would hesitate to use any kind of terminology that takes away from like the skill set of being like a proper musician, if that makes sense. But certainly I identify hopefully as being a somewhat amusing musician.
Now, with the new album coming out, Peeled Back, on July 9th, to get the plug in there for you, we have to talk about some of Weird Al's crossover with Nine Inch Nails. So I guess the first one, if we're going in order, would be during the alternative polka, he does a polka-fied version of the first song on your new album.
Yep.
Closer.
Yep. I want to beep you like an animal. Yep. It's so it's so funny. That's an example. I mean, Weird Al's the king of this, but like just taking something that you know is I mean, this is the most basic thing in the world, but taking something that you know is existing in one way and then flipping it on its head immediately reveals so much about the original thing at hand. And that's what I love so much about a good satire of like, it really exposes like, wow, that song is filthy. Like, listen to how many beeps they have on this song, you know? Like, and also there's just something so funny about censorship. I actually, just to be safe, just in case the radio would like to play any of my album, I had to think about what are some songs that I think could be good for airplay that I would want to have censored. And I picked the ones that I like the best. And, you know, I picked Closer, I picked Wish, but I also picked one that as soon as I listened to it, I was like, the radio will never play this. And that is Big Man with a Gun,
Right.
where almost every lyric, I didn't realize, I thought you only had to bleep a few words. You have to bleep most words. It's almost like I'm not singing on that track anymore. And that makes it that much worse because then you have your imagination filling in
Right.
all these lines. And so yeah, when you have the boink sound effect on Closer when Weird Al does it, it's just so funny.
Now, for your songs that you did censor, did you go the Tenacious D route and record an alternate line, or did you put in the actual bleep?
We didn't do a bleep. We just did what Trent Reznor does on Closer, which is like, and actually they have like a joke about it on Flight of the Conchords too, of just like ucking up my ish, like
Yeah.
it's that type of thing. Too many uckers to count. Like it's basically that. So it's like I want a animal, which is really weird.
Right.
But that's what we did.
That's funny. I kind of want to hear those now.
I will send them to you because
Please.
Big Man with a Gun is truly like. What?
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I love the idea of that.
Right. And the other Weird Al 9 Inch Nails pastiche is off of his Running with Scissors album, Germs.
Yeah, that was fun.
So how do you think Weird Al did covering 9 Inch Nails with Germs?
I think he did a pretty good job. I think that it's clear that he knows what to tap into with that stuff.
Yeah.
I do think that 9 Inch Nails is one of the harder bands to kind of parody, if you're not doing just direct parody, because Trent Reznor is so like singular and good at what he's doing. And part of it is that it's kind of hard to replicate. So I was very impressed that Germs was as good as it was. I also recently watched, I forget if it was something Jim Henson, but I don't know what, something that looks like Fraggle Rock, but I don't think it was Fraggle Rock because the way that the timing works of it. But there was some parody called like the 9 Inch Snails or something. And it's very fun, but in my opinion, just really misses the mark on what 9 Inch Nails is. And I think a lot of people that don't actually really know 9 Inch Nails might kind of assume that they're more like sad sack, like emo-y, like whiny, just kind of like droning music, as opposed to like these are pop songs. Like, you know, Miley Cyrus did an episode of Black Mirror where they take two different 9 Inch Nails songs and kind of rearrange them in a way that they sound like just pop bangers, and they don't need to do much because these songs are just good, fun, poppy songs. He just has made them so his own, which makes them quite fun to cover. But yes, I think Weird Al did a very fun job.
And you were probably a fan of that song and the alternative polka
Long before.
prior to even knowing about 9 Inch Nails. So that's pretty cool to have those to go
Oh
back
yeah.
to.
Yeah, that's the thing about a lot of my pop culture knowledge is that, yeah, I did hear most of the Weird Al songs first. And then you listen to the real one, and you're like, this isn't funny. This song sucks. What's the point? Yeah, and his originals, too, are just, like, next level funny and ingrained in my brain. But if you don't know better, you might think, oh, this must be a parody, too. And then you realize, nope, he just wrote it. He's just that good.
Or vice versa. Like, I had a similar experience with some songs I never knew were parodies until, I'm in the supermarket and I hear the original come on. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a parody.
Yeah. It sounds like Weird Al. Yeah. Just his pastiche stuff. Like, I will say I'm still very much in Let Me Talk About Nine Inch Nails. I cannot wait to release my Nine Inch Nails cover album. But I also would like to put it out there that my next cover album is going to be They Might Be Giants.
Oh, wow.
And the album is going to be called They Might Be Goertz. And so, speaking of, I guess I'm only going to do cover albums if Weird Al has done an homage to them. And I will say, like, my favorite They Might Be Giants song is the Weird Al song, Everything You Know Is Wrong.
You've got to put it on the album.
Perfect. I think I will, because it's honestly so good.
You have to.
And that is an example of, like, while I think that Germs is fun, I think Everything You Know Is Wrong is a masterclass on whatever we are calling what that is. It's just so perfect.
Yeah.
Same with the Ben Folds one, which also references The Simpsons, so I'm very partial to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Weird Al turns out pretty talented.
Yeah, I don't think there's no half measures when it comes to Weird Al. I think he is.
No.
He's going all in, and he's really putting the effort in. The same way, like we were saying earlier about the people working on Weird and Eric, and he is doing these pastiches of bands that I think he truly has a deep adoration for. So he really wants to make them proud and also put out a good song.
Absolutely.
Well, I would love to know where you first met Weird Al, because you've had a really cool career where you've done a lot of things, and I want to get to some of it. But where in this amalgam of your life did you first actually meet Weird Al for the first time?
The first time I met Weird Al was when I was working as a social media producer for the Comedy Central show At Midnight. And it would have been around 2013, maybe 2014. And this is an example of, I'm so lucky I get to be around really cool people as guests on the show every single day. Yeah. But I'm not going to make them feel weird. I'm not going to fangirl. I'm not going to do that stuff. But when Weird Al comes on set, I just what do you do? I warned the producers ahead of time, not too much ahead of time that they wouldn't let me on set, but enough so that they didn't wonder where I was when I was making my way to his green room. So I said, I unfortunately have to give Weird Al my CD right now, and I'll be right back. Like, what? Oh, okay. And so I went into his dressing room, and that sounds creepy, but it's not that creepy. I swear. I knocked politely and did not barge in or sneak into his dressing room. And I was like, hi, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to do this. I know you get this all the time, and I know you get that all the time, but I am such a big fan, and for better or for worse, you really inspired my music, and I kind of do music comedy type stuff, but it's a little bit more serious, and like, here's my CD, and I really hope you like it. And he's like, oh, awesome, thank you, that's so sweet. Do you want to take a picture? Yes, I do. Oh, thank you so much. Just very, very nice, very, very sweet. And he's like, that's very cool, right on, and just very friendly. And then that was that. Very exciting. Couldn't have been happier. I gave my CD to Weird Al. He did not, spit on me or do anything mean, and that was a win. And then maybe at least 1 or 2, if not 3 years later, I go to my friend Alex Hirsch. He created the show Gravity Falls. He was doing a Gravity Falls rap party. And I get really, really, really nervous doing karaoke. And this was a karaoke little party. And I told my best friend Casey, who was a former associate editor at Mad Magazine. We got to work together. But I told him and our other friend, Alexis, hey, I get so nervous at karaoke. Can you guys look at me while I'm doing karaoke, just so if I get nervous, there'll be some nice smiling faces and stuff? And they're like, of course we will. Of course we'll do that. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And so I get up there and I do... despite being shy, I'm still going to pick a very bold song. And I did the song Little Girls by Oingo Boingo, which is like quite upsetting to people that don't get the satire, and whatever. It's a choice. And I'm doing it, and I'm getting kind of nervous, but I think I'm doing okay. And I look over, and my friends are not looking at me. And I'm like, what the hell? You guys had one job. And so I follow their eye line to see what could be so great they're looking at right now. And it's what are they looking at? They're looking at Weird Al looking at me doing karaoke. And then I like dart my head over to my friends, and then they dart their heads over at me, kind of like, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? And I finish my song, and I run over to them, and I was like, did you guys see Weird Al looking at me doing karaoke? Like, we saw it. It's so crazy. So excited. And then from behind me, I hear someone kind of like running up, and it's Weird Al. And he was like, that was so good. That was like one of the most fun like versions of Oingo Boingo's Little Girls I've ever heard at karaoke. That was awesome. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I go, Al, like, I'm not sure if you remember, I don't know why you would, but I actually met you a couple years ago. And he's like, yeah, I know. I have your CD in my car. And I go, what? And he's like, well, yeah, no one really makes CDs anymore. It's the only one I have. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And he said that he thought it was, really good and really fun. And it was just an overwhelmingly joyous experience. And then after that, I don't know at what point it would have been, but I started getting like emails on my birthday from Weird Al, and it was like such an exciting thing. It is single-handedly what keeps me alive every year, so I gotta get that email. And then when I got the job at Mad Magazine, he did a tweet that referred to me and the senior editor Dan Telfer as his friends, and he goes like, my friends Allie Goertz and Dan Telfer are like putting out new stuff at Mad Magazine as editors, and I'm so excited, blah blah blah. But I just remember looking at that and being like, Weird Al called me his friend. Like, that is the craziest thing in the entire world. I still will say that oh, and he also did my Simpsons podcast at some point. I don't know when that happened. I think we were following each other on Twitter. I think, this was before Mad Magazine. I think we had met at at midnight, and then the Gravity Falls party, and then, he and Rivers Cuomo started following me on the same day, and because that happened, and I'm like a big Weezer fan, I was like, is this a prank? I was not only like, is this a prank, but for some reason I got really scared and was like, am I going to be killed? Like, I don't know why I thought that, but I was a little bit like, something's wrong. Like, this doesn't add up. Anyway, I don't really understand what happened. It's not like I had like a very popular Twitter or whatever, but I immediately slid into those DMs because that's what I do. And I immediately was like, would you please do our podcast? And then within 1 minute flat, he said that he would. And I was like, oh my God, get a life, Weird Al. But I will say, as much as I love the Simpsons podcast that I did with Julia Prescott over the years, I think that I really tanked that interview. I think I did a really bad job because I was really nervous. I feel like I was just not very good. So I would say everyone should go listen to it, but I don't know how good I come across in it, but he comes across great, so maybe you just enjoy it. Cover your ears when I go on there. But anyway, I have been very lucky to meet him a number of times, and every time that I do meet him, I still have this kind of energy of like, you probably don't remember me, but like, you met me at this thing once, and he's like, I know, stop doing this. But another time that I ran into him was I went to like one of the Simpsons premiere parties at Universal Studios, that's another thing where I'm like, how did I rig this to be my life, that I get to be hanging out with Bart Simpson and whatever. And then I saw Al there, and I think I did the thing as well where I wanted to say hi, because of course you want to say hi to Weird Al.
Right.
But I also don't want to take up Weird Al's time.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? This and that, catching up. Okay, well, I'll let you enjoy, your night. And he's like, no, I'll hang out. And I'm like, what? Okay, great. And then like I kept trying to give him opportunities to ditch me, because I assumed that's what he would want to do. I couldn't get rid of this man. he was going on rides with us. It was me and my then boyfriend Alec Owen, who he had also done stuff with for 5 Second Films, if you've ever heard of them.
Oh yeah.
And really funny sketch.
Oh yeah.
But it was just so funny to like be like so desperately trying to be polite and read the room and be like, maybe actually this is not, maybe I'm reading this wrong and this is actually just nice and I could stop freaking out. But it was very, very fun. And every time that I see him, I'm overjoyed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Actually, one other little thing
Yeah.
is that I forget what it was for, but Jonah Ray was hosting like a Q&A for some thing. I don't know what it was, but he was interviewing Al for it, and it was like a live
Variety magazine.
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah. Were you there?
No, I just know a lot about Weird Al.
Okay. Well, so on that day, like I was hanging out with Jonah, and so we went over there together, and I got to kind of shoot the shit a little bit with Jonah and Al, and it was very fun. And he asked me, he's like, how's the Nine Inch Nails album going? I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that you even know that I have a Nine Inch Nails album coming on. And again, I'm not trying to like take up too much of his time, so I end up kind of just getting really quiet around people that I really like, I guess. But I go into the audience to watch the show, and one of the questions that Jonah had for Al was like, what music have you been listening to? And then Al like mentioned, he's like, oh yeah, well, Allie, backstage we were talking about Nine Inch Nails, and like, yeah, Nine Inch Nails is really fun. I'm like, I can't believe that he's talking about like listening to Nine Inch Nails because of me. He said my name. That's amazing. But anyway, I do think that coming on this podcast and like very obsessively like geeking out over every interaction we've had might not be great for my friendship with Al.
No, he'll love it.
So you do unfortunately have to cut out all the parts where I talk about Al. You could bleep his name and we could assume that I'm talking about Al, but you can't say Al. But you have to use the closer boink sound.
Okay.
Yes.
We can definitely do that.
So my friend, yep.
So you touched on it very briefly, and I'm just such a big fan of Mad Magazine. I would just love to hear whatever you want to tell us about being an editor for Mad Magazine.
Well, it's just a place of business. That was something that I could not stop saying when I worked there. For those not in the know, that is, there's an episode of The Simpsons where Bart visits the Mad Magazine offices, and he's very excited and is told, there's really nothing to see here. It's just a place of business. But then the door opens behind him, and it's like Alfred E. Newman and people in pogo sticks and just like pies being thrown at each other. It's very, very funny. One thing I'll say about Mad was, first of all, it's one of the best, coolest experiences of my life. I wish that it lasted longer. Turns out print media not doing as hot as it was in the 70s, but it was such an honor to work at Mad, and I loved it, especially getting to work with my friend Casey, and I loved working with Bill Morrison, our editor-in-chief, for the time that he was there. But one very funny to me thing is that, Mad back in the 70s and earlier, when it was a free-standing entity that was not owned by different, conglomerates.
Right.
It was a different culture from what I can understand. Obviously, I was not there. But when Bill Gaines and that crew were Mad Magazine, it just seems quite different from what it became culturally. Because when I worked there, it was owned by DC Comics, who's owned by Warner Brothers, who, the reason we ended up not getting to exist in the way that we exist is there was a merger with like True TV and HBO Max and like just AT&T, I think it was. There was just like a big merger, and it was like so many people owning this little thing that just wasn't really getting the love and you know, due diligence that it deserved. And that being said, I really wanted to kind of bust out of the corporate life of Mad Magazine, which should not be a thing. Like, you know, we're not even allowed to like light candles at our desk, let alone like light up like they probably were in the 70s. There were definitely stories in the 70s about like everyone's going to the movies, it's a Tuesday afternoon, like we need to go see the movies so that we could parody it, and like stuff like that. It just seemed so much fun. And so one day I brought in like a little personal size trampoline to my desk, and I was like, well, this will be fun. And so, you know, I would be stumped on how to make this piece as funny as possible, or, you know, what certain whatever. I was stumped on my work, and I would be like, time for a trampoline break, and I would jump on the trampoline, and I'm like, yes, okay, got my ideas, back to the grind. And I printed out a little piece of paper that said, by jumping on this trampoline, you promise not to sue us if you get hurt. So I felt like all my bases are covered. And then like genuinely the very next day I get into work, and the office manager and her lackey, I don't know what else to call him. He's like Filch from Harry Potter, like just very like just permanent scowl, just like there to ruin all the fun. Has never been a child in his life, just always came, you know what I mean? And yes. They're just like arms crossed, like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, that's a trampoline. And they're like, you can't have a trampoline here. It's dangerous. Someone could get hurt and they could sue us. I'm like, did you see my sign? And then the lackey like holds up his fist and goes, this sign? And he had crumpled it up. And I was like, how long were you just standing with a crumpled piece of my sign in your hand waiting for me to get here? I never show up on time. This is so silly. And sadly, they made me get rid of the trampoline. Which was very indicative of what would end up happening with Mad, with the new kind of merger and all that stuff. It's too bad, because our team, I think, was doing a great job of kind of blending like old school Mad, like Mad at its earliest days, and then kind of some of this newer feel as well. And it just felt kind of like breathing some fresh, I mean, like, I love everything that Matt has done, but it was really cool to kind of tap into this new energy, and I was really excited about what we could have done, because we had a lot of really cool ideas, and you know, it makes a lot of sense, but we were the redheaded stepchild of that company, and so it is what it is. I do hope that one day Matt ends up getting bought by someone who doesn't, you know, place so many restrictions on it. And shout out, by the way, to the team that is still there with they do not quite reprints, like full issue reprints, but they're doing hodgepodge like collections of like, here's the political issue, or here's the Christmas issue, or here's an issue about food. Like, they do themed stuff that has old material spanning, you know, since the beginning to when we left. So there's still a subscription you could get. It's just sadly no longer original content. And you know, it also is so crazy because Al Jaffe was there up until the point that I left, and he just, the fact that you get to work with some of these icons like Sergio Aragonés and, you know, you're editing a Mad Look At and Spy vs. Spy, like, it's just so cool. And as you know, Weird Al was a guest editor for Mad Magazine, and it's very cool that he and I are both people who have edited that amazing little publication.
Yeah, because there are not that many in the history that can say that for such an iconic magazine. Yeah. Do you have any insight on, was Al the actual editor? Was he doing the same kind of stuff that you were doing, or was it more of a, yeah, we're just going to say Al's the editor? I think I know the answer, but I'm curious if you heard anything while you were working there.
Well, my understanding was that, like, his type of role would have been in part, like, kind of cherry picking, like, what types of things would he want in his issue, and you know, kind of contributing to the overall tone and Weird Al-ness of the issue, which is a really cool job to have of kind of being a tastemaker of what's gonna fit in there. I assume they put him to work and he was checking spelling errors and making sure that the art direction wasn't going over the margins. I bet no one came into work that month. It was just Al.
I wouldn't be surprised if that were true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I will say, Allie, you mentioned earlier how you don't want to disrupt people sometimes when you're a fan of them. I did see you at a Weird Al show a couple years ago. I did not go over to you because I didn't want to, be weird or anything. So just know...
well, I'm not famous. You could come up to me anytime.
Okay. Well, now I will.
No, I actually... No, you should. I definitely... while I think it's good to let people have their space and privacy, I also like to think that people will be happy to hear that their work has made a difference on someone's life. And to be honest, I've now reached a point, because these stories where I was like, I don't want to bother you, I'm in my early 20s, and now that I'm in my early to mid 30s, my attitude is get out of show business if you're gonna not be excited to hear about it. Get lost. If you're doing this and are not doing it at least a little bit to make people happy, screw you.
Right.
So next time you see any celebrity, just go up and bug them like crazy.
And if they get mad, I will point them towards you.
Exactly.
I'll put them towards you and your brand new album coming out on July 9th, Peeled Back,
That's
a tribute to Nine Inch Nails. We can already pre-save and pre-purchase the album. We can go over to tinyurl.com/peeled-back, and we can get all of the great information and links there in one easy to remember website URL, tinyurl.com/peeled-back. And Allie, this is so exciting that we got to have you on the podcast. We got to talk about the new album. We got to talk about Weird Al. And I am so excited for the teaser you gave us about your They Might Be Giants album.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I was on a podcast the other day and someone asked me if Weird Al was going to be on the album. And I haven't even started one single song on the album, let alone think about if I'm going to ask icon Weird Al to be on it. But I was like, yeah, sure. So I feel like if I keep going on podcasts and confirming without his consent or any awareness that I'm doing this, that he will 100% be on it, I feel like he'd be kind of a jerk to say no.
I know. Once it's out there, especially on the Weird Al podcast, then he has to. It's mandatory at this point.
But yeah, I'm very excited about that. It'll be a long time from now, but might as well try to drum up some excitement while we can.
We've had Nerf Herder on the podcast, and I think you can guess where this is going. They have their song called Allie Goertz on their 2016 album, Rockingham. Yes. Now, how did you find out about that song, and what was your reaction and thoughts to hearing it?
Well, it will probably shock you to know that there was some sliding into DMs happening. That is the origin of every story. Well, what happened was I had done a cover with an old bandmate of the song Lamer Than Lame and posted it. It probably got as many as 5,000 views. No one really saw it. But of those 5,000 was Nerf Herder. And they were like, this is awesome. Oh my God, how cool. And they started following me. And I ended up opening for them at a show at Comic-Con. But we really never talked. We didn't have this back and forth. It was just, I really respect them and love them and think they're so talented, and they seemed to also have some level of, hey, I like what you do too, and that was really cool to me. And when they were promoting the new album, they took a screenshot of one of the upcoming song titles, and one of them was The Girl Who Listens to Rush. And I replied, and I was like, oh, is this about me? And they said, just wait. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. And I got a DM. It might have been Linus, it might have been Perry, but I got a DM that basically said, hey, do you want to hear one of the songs off the new album. I'm like, of course I do. And it wasn't titled, so there was no spoiler. And I was driving, I queued it up, and I'm listening to it, and it has, you know, lyrics about a girl that they think is cool, which is par for the course. And I was like, love it. Haven't lost a step. This is great. And then they start talking about how she has glasses and how she likes The Simpsons. And I was like, now wait a second. And then I was like, could this possibly be? And then they say first and last name Allie Goertz. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And like, I could have killed myself in the car just because of how like bad I was at driving in that moment, because I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. I had to pull over, and I was just like, you know, they say like when you get into a really bad like physical accident, like you don't even feel pain anymore because your body's just shut down. Like I couldn't even laugh because I was just like, my body just stopped. My body and brain stopped communicating to each other, and I was just like catatonically like, oh my God. And then I should go back and see what I said to them, but I was blown away. Couldn't believe it. And honestly, when I think about like my favorite moments in my entire life, one that comes to mind really quickly is I opened for Nerf Herder at the Troubadour, and they played their song for me, which was so exciting. And my mom was there, her husband was there, and like there's just like, we're at the historic Troubadour, and just like everyone is singing my name, including the band who wrote this about me for some weird reason. But before that, I actually unveiled a song that I wrote for Nerf Herder, and I sang it there to Perry, and there's like a really great picture of Perry just kind of like looking up at me from the crowd, and just there's like very platonic but very real love in both of our eyes of like, oh my gosh, what a love fest this is. And it's the only place and date and moment in the world that people would ever really care about my song about Nerf Herder, and that they would know who I am because that album had just come out. And so it was just like a perfect, like, wow, this is it. This is the moment. And so, yeah, that's definitely like iconic for me.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, you got such a banger of a song too out of
oh my
Nerf
God,
Herder.
it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I almost feel like does it feel weird to be listening to it? Like if you're in your car with the windows down, would you feel embarrassed for people to hear that you're listening to the song about you? Well,
the thing is that no one knows who I am, so
okay.
They can see me doing it and it won't matter. They would just be like, oh, that chick, whoever the she is, loves this Allie Goertz fella. Like, you know. So no, I don't worry about that. But I'm also someone who just last week was playing Monster Mash at full volume in the summer because I think that's funny. I love forcing people to listen to Monster Mash outside of the season. So am I a good judge of what songs to listen to with the windows down? Probably not. Or maybe I'm the best judge.
Oh, that's incredible. Allie, this has been so much fun.
Yeah,
hearing
thank you.
all about your experience with Al and your music. And we're so excited to check out your brand new album, Peeled Back, a tribute to Nine Inch Nails. It's available July 9th, 2024. I know sometimes people listen to our episodes years later, so giving them some context here. And I'm sure this URL will still work for these people in the future and the present day, tinyurl.com/peeled-back. And we can also, of course, follow you at Allie Goertz on X and Instagram and everywhere where fine social media is made. So, Allie, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun. And
my treat.
Congratulations on the album.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to our co-star in We're the Al Yankovic Story, Allie Goertz, for joining us this episode.
Please take a moment right now to pre-save and pre-purchase her brand new album, Peeled Back, a tribute to Nine Inch Nails, over at tinyurl.com/peeled-back.
And be sure to check out Allie over on Instagram and X at Allie Goertz. That's ALLIEGOERTZ.
This episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also under construction.
As you head to Darwin, Minnesota to celebrate the upcoming July 4th Independence Day holiday, please be aware of construction in the area.
According to the West Central Tribune, construction season for 2024 is well underway already in southwest Minnesota.
The West Central Tribune goes on to warn that motorists should expect delays and detours in some regions of southwest Minnesota.
While we are unaware of any construction projects within Darwin, Minnesota's borders, it's best to plan extra time as you make your way towards Darwin this holiday season.
We highly recommend stocking up on pickled wieners and Spider-Man comics before you set out on your journey.
You don't want to have any emergencies.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next driving expedition. Discover Darwin more than just a twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to attempt to visit www.discoverdarwin.biz.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors, Burrito, Wizard Burger, our very own Jackson Scoggins, and Discover Darwin. Our podcast is also supported by everyone else in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our close personal friend level Patreon supporters, Matt, Dana B. and Beaker, UH Jeff, Blair, Zach Casper, Adriana Banana Yugovic, Scotto Brothers, Kenneth, Ajax, Javier, Kev Messick, Weird Stream Date Nancy, Casey Killingsworth, Allison, Gus and Alicia, Ron, Zeb. Also thanks to Joe, Maria, Matt's Woodturning, Dave Canyon, and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
Hey kids, where do you want to go? To Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, as heard in the Weird the Al Yankovic Story commentary track. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast, your own private RSS feed, which gives you early access to each and every single bonus episode, and the self-satisfaction of doing something important with your otherwise pitiful, meaningless existence.
And don't forget to check out our official merchandise over at shop.2000inch.com. All proceeds from purchases go directly towards supporting our fine podcast. We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so be sure to join our Facebook community at group.2000inch.com. Also visit our Discord server for even more riveting Weird Al and Red Rum Goody related conversations. You can find both of them linked on our website, as well as information about past episodes and guests over at 2000inch.com or weirdalpodcast.com.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, X, Threads, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts so you do not miss a single episode. Not only does subscribing help the podcast, it'll help you forget about how miserable you are and how much life sucks and how we're all going to grow old and die someday. Plus, we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347 Spatula, as seen in the Illustrated Al, the Songs of Weird Al Yankovic. That number is 347-772-8852. Give it a call or a text, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
Thank you once again to Allie Goertz for joining us this episode. We'd also like to thank Eddie Schmidt, Jackie, Kate, Adrian and Ann Vasquez, Ron Jr., Claire Walsh and Francesco, Josh Pilch, UH Jeff Nucera, UH Jeff's mom, Joe Jaffa, Joe Jaffa's mom, Joe Jaffa's mom's friend, Insane Ian, The Fump, Zeb Lemke, Craig Billmeyer, Lee K. Seitz, Jared Marker, Kelly Phillips, Chuck Gonzalez, and thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song. And thank you to the Weasel Stomper himself, Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thanks to all of you, our loyal listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you, as always, for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast for your listening pleasure. And until next time, remember to gill and chill, keep listening to Weird Al, and stay cheesy.
So, Dave, it's been about a week. Did you eat your gummy hot dog from the UHF screening?
Oh, no. I have to keep it in mint condition for my collection.
But didn't you eat your Eat It 45?
Hey, I was just following instructions. That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 235-inch.
We've got it all on 2000-inch!
Coming on this podcast and very obsessively geeking out over every interaction we've had might not be great for my friendship with Al. Oh my God. Get a life, Weird Al.